Which hand plane to get first? The truth of that lies in the name. A plane is 2 points which are flat between, and that your primary objective of using a hand plane is to flatten something or plane it.
So let's have a look as to which one does that best.
Hi from Ben Construct, and you are welcome. Today we're going to look at the length of bench planes and why that determines the suitability for your work. Let's get to it. In the lineup we've got a block plane, a smoothing plane, a low angle jack plane, a number 7 jointing plane, and an electric plane. And when you take a length of timber of this length, it's going to be no surprises that we choose the jointing plane, the longest of the lot. But what happens then when we go to a smaller or a shorter piece of wood? Let's have a look at that. But before we do that, let's just have a quick note. And I'm going to note, especially here, the size of the sole in front of the actual cutting edge here. And one apparent thing is obviously there's a massive difference in the length of the soles. But let's just compare us the part which is in front of the blade. Let's try putting the block plane up against the jointer plane, and you can see they're massive. And the same with the smoothing plane, massive difference in that. And even when you put up the jack plane against it, still quite a substantial difference there in the length of those. And I'm going to demonstrate with a clearly not straight piece of timber here what can be achieved with a block plane or a smoothing plane. They will follow a bent piece of timber all day long, whereas if you can imagine this now trying to do that, it's going to immediately try and straighten that up. Let's just also have a look at this as a good demonstration point, and you'll clearly see there what is the effect when you pass over this lot with a block plane or another short base plane such as your smoothing plane. Whereas come the longer base planes, and you can clearly see there's not really a hope. They're going to try flatten those humps out of it straight away, whether it be the jack plane or the jointer. Okay, so you might say, what about these shorter lengths of timber? Let's give them a try. Well, clearly the block plane doesn't come into it. Same as that with the smoothing plane. Now which would be the better, that one or this one? And clearly you can see again, the longer the base, the better that is. If you were to take this one, all I have to look at it with this one, I don't have to put a straight edge anywhere near it, and it's going to be better. Let's go down another length. It's just under 1.5 feet here. And again, even taking a smoothing plane, it doesn't come into it. It'll still follow a contour. But what about now? Now the actual jack plane is nearly as long as the timber itself. But would it be better than the jointer? And the answer to that is really no, it's not. It's still the jointer is the best for this kind of work. Let's just take that front bit of sole. When you come to starting the plane, look how much reference you've got to hitting that. Straight away, you're on plane. Okay, yes, you can, of course, do it with the jack plane, but it's still the better plane for doing a job at that. There really isn't that much difference in the weight. People say they're a big, hefty thing. They're not really. And also there's this. The momentum of the weight of the plane makes it so much easier. Now, with something like that, now, I really don't think I probably need to even put a straight edge on that. So, yes, jointer, pretty much better for any size. This is only 1.5 feet long. Let's take a smaller timber, 8 inches long. And let's see what we get out of this. Now with this, a lot of people proclaiming you can do that with a smoothing plane. Well, yes, you can. You can. But just look at this little reference point here for when you hit it. It's very small. And still the jack plane, massive great reference point, and through it goes. You know, can you use a jointer on that? Absolutely. Big reference point. It's going straight through. No problems whatsoever. So for flattening a piece of timber, even if it's something as small as this, you know, the bigger base planes are your men, you know. With the shorter planes, I generally don't use them that much. Now the block plane is particularly good and comes into its own when you want to chamfer for an edge. Very easy, as you can see, swap sides, no problems at all. Great little job, takes the sharp edges off it, even creates a little chamfer if that's what you want. The smoothing plane for me, I keep it sharp and it goes on the shelf. If I've done a long session with the other jack plane or the jointer, then I can bring that down as a sharp edge plane to just finish off my work. You know, but quite frankly, you know, if I keep a sharp edge on the jointer or the jack plane, I don't need it. All I do is reduce, just pull back the blade to make a very fine cut, take a couple of sweeps with that, and it's going to be equally as good as the smoothing plane for finishing your work. And of course, it does work if you want to chamfer the edges. It's not really a problem. It takes a second longer in your hand to turn it around and demands you use the two handles. But with the smoother, it mostly stays up on the shelf and doesn't get used that often. One plane we didn't go into yet, which has great use, and that is actually the electric plane. And I'll show you quickly how that works. I basically use it as a scrub plane or a four plane. And so let's just have a quick look at that. I've got a rough piece of wood like this, you know, it's gnarled and everything. And if you notice with these, they've got a setting there which takes you, you know, from 0 all the way around to even 3 millimeters. So if I set it at 2, a fairly moderate setting, then, you know, rough edge like that, why would I waste my good hand planes for that? As you can see, whack, it's done. And another thing we're going to look at just now, makes a lovely mess of course, but there you go, is we're going to look at a bowed board or a rough bit of timber. And with something like this, an old piece of oak which is warped, you know, that electric planer, you know, will come across, sort that out, or flatten one side of it, ready for the jointer plane to come in afterwards. No time at all, I assure you.
As you'll see here, with only a few passes, it's going to make a big dent in that bow, fairly sharpish. And accordingly, it'll set it up nicely for either your jointer plane, or if you've just got a jack plane will soon be ready to go on the top of that. But if you use the jack plane or the jointer, you know, you're going to be there for half an hour, whereas this will do it in 3 or 4 minutes, or less than 5 anyway.
Why then have I chosen a low angle bevel up plane as opposed to a more traditional one? It's not because the angles of the blade presented to the wood are any different. The traditional comes at a 45-degree angle, and with the bevel down, that's the angle that's presented to the wood. With the low angle, it's got a bed of 12 degrees, and the blade, when it's on to the usual angle of 30 degrees, gives you 42 degrees. 3 degrees, you can it's barely discernible. But what this plane does have is this. It has an adjustable mouth. By loosening the top here, I can close that mouth tight in. okay, or open it up when I'm just lobbing off bits of wood. Plus, there's another thing that it has as well, and that is I can swap out that blade. I don't have to worry about a chip breaker, which is on the traditional plane, to a high angle blade. This one's honed at 43 degrees, which along with the 12 degrees of the bed of the low angle will give me 55 degrees of attack on the wood, which is very good for dealing with a hardwood, difficult grain wood. It works well, and as I'll show you now, you can swap it out in seconds. And then you've got a high angle of attack. Take your mouth, close the mouth up, and a few fine more adjustments there, and that's going to be perfect for dealing with difficult grain, or reversing grain, or figured wood. So it's so quick and so easy. It's a great plane to start with. It gives you immediate use, and very simply and easily done. So that's that one. There is a few advantages to having a chip breaker in there, but then having said that, I have got a traditional blade plane here, or I can use my smoothing plane. This one has got a couple of features, and different to a lot of the main hand planes you see on the shelf, this one also has an adjustable mouth, and by undoing that we can open or close this one. It's done by Varieties, Lee Valley, and all that. It is a bit pricey, but all their stuff does come immaculate, and it's a very, it's a high quality plane. But that feature alone to me makes it worthwhile to go with them on that. Another thing is with the low angle plane is that they do, make absolutely exceptional planes for your shooting board. The first jig you're going to have in the shop where you need to square off your edges. It's just got everything in the right place to grab, and the weight of it just is second nature when you're using a shooting board. Summary. So definitely for me, it's the jack plane, length plane, which is the best, and for all-round general use. And as a first plane, definitely I'd choose that over, a smoothing plane, or even the jointer plane. But as you can see, the jointer plane, it's quite versatile in itself. But the jack plane is definitely the one. And looking at them then. So the jack plane is your man then. Its sole is, just under 15 inches there. Doesn't have to be the low angle. It could be the traditional. Either one works well once they're honed up. And follow that in then with, a jointer plane. Obviously, anyone can see the advantage in having that longer sole. It is still very versatile. You can even do beveled edges, but in frankness now, a little block plane, that's really the handiest for softening your edges or putting a little bevel on it. And eventually, it's the smoothing plane. There's nothing wrong with a smoothing plane. Finishing off a fine bit of work there and just giving it that final touch. If you've got that honed up just for light touches, it's very easy to take the hand and just give it that final skim. It is a good plane. And with that said, that's us done for today. And if you found any of this helpful or useful, please give us a thumbs up and make a comment. Always glad to hear any alternative opinions on this.